This is Mini GT Pagani Huayra Roadster, and it is another great Mini GT. Yesterday I reviewed this, the Mini GT Honda Civic Type R, but they are two very different things. All the details needs to be made very differently for both of the cars. And again, Mini GT has nailed it again and again with this Pagani Huayra Roadster. And today I'm just gonna do an in-depth review of that. Before we start, let's just talk about a few notable items of this car. Like a few highlights. I'll do that in every review. Talk about its highlights. Number one is the paintwork, which is absolutely superb. That's what I'm gonna say. I think it's even better than the Civic Type R because it looks even glossier, and they've put some metal flakes in there. Really high quality metallic paintwork, and they can't do carbon fiber, so they also added this paintwork, this sort of silvery grey paintwork. It also has metal flakes, but it isn't metallic or glossy. You can probably see that. You can also feel that with my fingers as well. And so that is a really brilliant touch. You can also see the sort of matte paintwork with the metallic flakes all around the car. I mean, you don't really see matte and metallic paintwork in one paint. I mean, you don't really see that usually, but anyway, it's great. Another thing to note is the sheer details of this car. It's fantastic. I mean, you see the Pagani Huayra Pagani's signature. You see the Huayra Roadster here. You see the exhaust. You see the engine, the interior. Everything is absolutely detailed in this thing, but it's not as good as this one because the Honda Civic Type R is really like the pinnacle of Mini GT. But with that out of the way, let's get right into the review. Ah yes, the review, and we always start with the front, which is what I'm going to do now. Let's start with the headlights. Unfortunately, these aren't transparent headlights, but I don't blame them. You don't really have transparent headlights that are made these small, and so they just painted it on. But I will say, the cuts are really, really deep, which gives it sort of a high quality look that it's not supposed to be for painted headlights. But it's utterly fantastic, and well, yeah, they just have done a great job here. You look at the front end, looks pretty nice, and you also see a nice Pagani logo right here. In the windshield you see some windshield wipers, and the windshield feels fairly solid. Except moving to the side, you see the wheels. There are no brakes because they're transparent. Like that. By transparent, I mean you can see like the background between the wheel arches. But I don't really blame them because, again, $10 US, you aren't getting that much. You're already getting enough. Like you have these rubber wheels, rubber tires. I mean, you've got some pretty good looking wheels. Although, I would prefer the wheels in the Civic Type R, but again, the Civic Type R was literally the best, so I'll not blame them this time. You know, as you can see, you've got the Roadster Pagani logo here, and you've got some fuel gauge things here. The lines are lined up pretty perfectly, and they've did a pretty fantastic job with this. Moving on to some of its interesting quirks and features, I like to start with the rear taillights, because they are actually painted on. But my first impressions were, what? How are these painted on? Because they just look so real. Yes, they have done a superb job with the painting to make it look like a real transparent light. That is something to note because the paint job is again superb. That notification was my phone, it wasn't your phone, so let's just keep that in mind. Anyway, and then you've got the Huayra Roadster badge there. Unfortunately, it is a bit faded out, probably because I've done this a few times. Anyway, let's not get bogged down with me throwing my Huayra. Let's talk about the rear wings. It doesn't have any rear wings, but does have these flaps cut out, which is really cool because it doesn't really flap out, but they've made it cut out just in case you want to DIY it yourself. The engine is also a very interesting quirk of this car. Now, I have disassembled this and found out it isn't really an engine, duh. But I do appreciate how it's painted gold, so that is a pretty interesting quirk. Now, I also love these outlines. These aren't just outlines, they're actually textured. So they've actually craved these textures inside this piece of metal here, which is interesting and cool. A large quirk of this car is the interior, which is pretty controversial in my opinion. The seats are done very well. The floor mats are done very well. The front, part is done very well. The gauges are done very well. The gear levels done well. Except, why the hell is the steering wheel painted silver? Why is the middle of the steering wheel painted in this horrible silver? It's hideous. Why did they do that? It ruins the entire interior. Not just kidding, it didn't ruin the entire interior, but I would have just been better if they've just left it perhaps black, or maybe they have kept it in this cool leather color. But anyway, the interior is actually pretty well appreciated. It's just that little silver paint that sort of buggered me off. Yes, but anyway, that is the review, the conclusion. When you see Mini GT, just buy it, you won't regret it. Because, well, it's fantastic. The paintwork, the details, the quality is very high. Not as high as Limited Vintage NEO, but, well, high enough. It just only costs $10 US. There's nothing wrong with buying that. The wheels are fantastic. The interior is fantastic. The seats are fantastic except for the steering wheel. And everything is great. I hope you have enjoyed these videos and the quirks and features things I'm doing now, just like Doug DeMuro. Anyway, thanks so much for watching the Diecast, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Oof, luckily I held that in time.